is focused on Liberia, and it is our program, The Hour of Politics, with me, Anthony C., your host. Folks, as you can see, we are live. We are live, and we are live. And our topic in this edition of The Hour of Politics is the opposition politicians. We want to know whether or not they are complete liability or asset in our democracy. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia on our program, The Hour of Politics, with me, Anthony C. Our topic, the opposition politicians, asset or liabilities. This is the topic for today's edition of the Hour of Politics. We want to welcome you so gladly to our program. And we also want to ask you to hit that share button to share this show with your contact. Folks, this is going to be interesting. It is about time we bring the opposition politician under the microscope. They've been making a lot of noise. They have been raising all the accusing fingers against the ruling party that the ruling government is not, or ruling party is not up to the task. These are the ones that want to replace the ruling party to lead our country to the promised land. Do they have it? This is what we are trying to look for in this topic. The opposition politician, assets or liability. To discuss this very important topic, I have two outstanding panelists. First is Mr. Wayman Kunin. Mr. Kunin is an analyst yet at Focus on Liberia. Mr. Kunin, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Asani. Happy to be back.
All right, Mr. Kunin right there expressing his happiness to be back to discuss the issue that have to do with the opposition politician. We want to know whether they are assets or liability. Also, we have another panelist, the gentleman, Bill Clintosh Kamara. Mr. Kamara, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here once again. I want to say thank you for hosting us today.
All right, with not much ado at this time, folks in cyberspace, as you can see, the state is search. If you have been wondering whether or not the opposition who have been making all the noise about the ruling government or the government in power is not doing much enough to improve lives, then we want to know what they too have in their closet. And this is what we are trying to look into. And so my panelists are set. Bill Clinton's camera is set. The analysts here are focused on Liberia. Mr. Wayman Cooney is also comfortably seated. I am comfortably seated as well, and we will go into the conversation. Gentlemen, let's start with you, Mr. Kamara. This is your first time on this platform, Focus on Liberia. You have followed us. And so some people who don't know you might want to know who is Mr. Kamara. Just a little brief introduction, sir.
Well, I want to say thank you so much again. I've been following this show for the past 1 year, and I want to say this is one of the very good platforms. My name is Bill Clintosh. Traditional name Bill Clintosh.
Yeah.
Madingo, but from Rufus County. I a former representative candidate in the district number 2 of Monserrado County on the particular movement for economic empowerment, the president of the Liberian Diaspora Business Associations, and I'm also a business entrepreneur, intermittently doing business back home. I want to say to my own uncle and son, Mr. Kone, how you doing? And thanks to all of our viewers for following.
All right, Mr. Kamara there, who is a panelist in this conversation that we are bringing you through the hour of politics here at Focus on Liberia. Mr. Kunin is an analyst here at Focus on Liberia. Many of you have heard from him discussing the issues and providing analysis as he does best always here. And so he does not need any much formal introduction. But Mr. Kunin, some people may be watching us for the first time. Just a little bit, sir.
Well, Asani, thank you. I mean, you've said it all. For those of you who are signing on to the show for the first time, my name is Wilmot Cooney. I'm a community activist, someone with deep interest in governance and politics. I live in the U.S. state of Philadelphia, and I'm very proud to be one of the analysts for Focus on Liberia that has continued to use its platform to present national issues for discussion, to educate our people, to inform our people, and to also be educated by our listeners who listen to us and also send us their feedback as to how we are doing. I think this is a healthy exchange of ideas, and the beneficiary is all of us. So again, I'm happy to be here.
Mr. Conendale, like you heard him, and I said earlier, he is an analyst here at Focus on Liberia. He contributes to what we do here in educating, elevating, and promoting all things Liberia, especially when it comes to our democracy. We are always happy to have Mr. Kunin. Now, we don't want to waste your time. The topic, the opposition politician, assets or liability. Who are the opposition politicians? We will be naming them soon, and we will be going into their political resume and political closet so that we can be able to assess whether or not they constitute assets or liability in our democracy. First of all, let me define to you, for the sake of this discussion, we want to use a definition as a yardstick for the conversation. So let us define what is asset. For our research and for the purpose of this conversation, an asset is anything useful or valuable. It might be a person, it might be a quality that the person possesses, it can be something. All right, then let's look at liability. Liability can be something, it can also be a person. All right, whose presence or behavior is largely likely to cause embarrassment or put one at a disadvantage. I repeat, liability in this sense might be a person whose behavior is likely to cause an embarrassment or put one at a disadvantage. So, politically speaking, there are some political figures whose behavior might be an embarrassment, can bring disadvantage to your political future or your political success. So, based on those two definitions, assets and liability, we will now go into our conversation. And then at this time, we will start with our guest, Mr. Kamara. Mr. Kamara, let's look at Mr. Alexander Cummings as one of the opposition political figures in Liberia who is vying for the presidency. He is the leader of the ANC. In your own opinion, do you think he is an asset to his party, an asset to our democracy, or a liability to both?
Well, I want to say thank you for bringing us on this show, and that we can disagree and agree, but have respect for one another. That's part of our political institutions. That's part of our public policy agenda in terms of developing Liberia. With the issue being discussed today, I want to say it's a pleasure being here. When we look at asset in terms of human capital development, we want to look at how we look at the environment in terms of capability, in terms of how potential that person is, or that person is to the community, to the country, or to the corporations. So when we look at liability, then we look at how bright in terms of the person is being misplaced. He could be an asset, but he could also be misplaced in a particular environment that he becomes a perpetual liability. So I do not want to say Mr. Comey is a liability in terms of the environment he found himself in. He's an asset as a Liberian, and as a Liberian leading one of the major political parties. But as the question is whether he's placed in a particular environment to deliver the expectations of 4.5 million population, that becomes the question. He's an asset if he's called back to the Coca-Cola factory, or to any private institution because he's privately driven. He came from a private sector background where he got entrepreneurial skills. He had so many skills when it comes to profitability in terms of institutions. But is it an asset when it comes to public policy? Is it an asset looking at Liberia coming from out of war 25 years, where infrastructure are damaged, where you have 52% of the young people remain in destitute life? And we have so many broken down when it comes to institution in terms of policy. So isn't an asset when it comes to driving the public policy. That is where I have a caution to discuss today. But if is it an asset in the private sector? Yes, it's an asset. He has driven so many private sector policy that brought Coca-Cola factory to where it is today. But my decision today to me is that Mr. Comey is an asset for his political institution because political institutions are institutions that drive the agenda of their followers. But is he a public administrator? That is a question. Being a political tenor of a political party does not necessarily make you a political administrator for the nation. So I can have my party today. I'm a leader of that party. Do I understand the narrative of the social political climate of our country? Do I understand the root cause that have led to Liberia to where it is today? Do I understand the narrative of Liberians who are in the slum community? Do I understand the demographic in terms of ethnic vote, tribal vote, social political tie in terms of our system? Do I really understand it? I would say Mr. Comey is a new political asset to come to the Liberian political landscape.
So, your conclusion there is that he is an asset in our political disco, and but he is not there yet. Is that why you're saying that he's not that
Yeah,
asset who can
yes.
really put the number and win political victory?
Yeah, that's where my question is. He's like he's been matriculated into the political disco from
Hmm.
the CPC.
Okay.
Now he has an institution that's independent, the
Right.
ANC.
Right.
Does he really understand the narrative of liberal body politics in terms of the demographic when it comes to voting, when it comes to how do we vote? Does he understand the narrative, the economic breakdown of our country? Does he understand how the public policy is driving our country? Then I say he is a sophomore for now.
He's a sophomore in terms of asset politically.
Right.
All right, let's come to you, Mr. Conan. We are assessing whether or not Mr. Alexander Cummings, the head of the ANC, falls in the category of asset or liability, politically speaking. What's your assessment?
Well, thank you, Asani. I'm going to disappoint you a little. I'm going to disappoint maybe a lot of people a little because I have a different take on the question that is being asked.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning of the program, you provided a very good definition of asset and a liability. But when I put it within my own context, within the political process,
Mm-hmm.
When we speak of opposition political parties as assets, I think some of the things we'll be asking ourselves will be, are the opposition political parties contributing to the enhancement of democracy in our country? Are they consolidating the democratic process that we're in? Are they contributing to that process? Are they raising the governance issue? Those are the kind of thing that I would say contribute an asset when you talk about a political opposition political party. And then the liability for me would be whether they are subtracting from those things that are supposed to make us a better country, a better democracy, provide a better governing space for our people. These are, some of the variables that I would be looking at. So, with that in mind, I will also be a little bit thin on going on the individual. I would like to look at the opposition political parties as an entity. I mean, what are they supposed to do? I mean, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, then they are an asset. If they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then they are a liability. So some of the things we'll be examining for me is that opposition political parties, they should hold the government accountable. That is one of their roles. They should hold government accountable. They should shine the light on the activities of government. This should also be the training ground for new leadership. For new leadership, then the most crucial function that opposition political parties should be doing is to develop a clear alternative to the ruling government.
Yeah.
You know, they should give us that clear alternative. They should develop that clear programs. So for me, to the extent that they are doing those things, I would say they are an asset. To the extent that they're not doing those things, I would say that they are a liability. And so to discuss that, to the extent that a specific individual is crucial to the discussion, I will mention that individual by name, but I would prefer to stick to the role of the opposition political parties in Liberia at this point in time. Are they contributing to the democratic space we have? Are they contributing to the governance space we have? Are they developing a clear alternative to the current system that we have? Are they developing new generation of leadership that we can look at and say, oh, yeah, maybe there is a new generation of leadership on the horizon.
And what would be your answer to those questions? You know, are they developing a clear alternative or clear alternatives? Are they developing new breed of leaders? Are they contributing to our democratic process? Are they holding the government accountable on the issue of good governance? What would be your answers to those?
On the question of the criticism of government, I gave them A plus because criticisms, very easy to criticize somebody. It's easy. So they latch on to every criticism of the government. But in my opinion, I think the opposition has failed greatly in the area of presenting the Liberian people with a clear alternative. They've also failed greatly in the area of recruiting a new generation of leadership that our country can look at and be proud of. Moving forward. Okay. So with the three categories that are listed, one, which is very easy, anybody can do that, to criticize, anybody can do that. I can give them A plus in that. Okay. But when it comes to the crucial two of developing an alternative, of developing new generation of leadership, they fail. Up to this point, they failed tremendously.
Thank you. And let's come to you, Mr. Kamara. You just listening to Mr. Kone giving the opposition A plus on the issue of holding the government accountable. People usually say holding the government feet to the fire on the issue of governance. He gave them A plus. That is very outstanding, a grade to give. There are some people who believe that the opposition political parties, I mean the leaders within the opposition bloc, they're not saying much. So my first question is, do you agree with Mr. Cooney with that grade he gave them A plus in terms of holding the government feet to the fire?
Well, unfortunately, I dissent on my uncle opinions. So by giving opposition an A plus, what constitutes an A plus should be a merit base. It is not only holding government feet to the fire. When you identify the problem in society, you are also in the driver's seat to help build the solution to that problem. That makes you a progressive opposition. Let's say, for example, we have the progressive, we have HB, Bacchus Manfield, Tupanantiput, and the rest of the people. The movement for justice in Africa, the multi-party democracy. We have those people with the exuberance, the political anxiety to change Liberia, bringing Liberia to a multi-party democracy. That was their advocacy, to leave the two party to have a multi-party. Now, did the proliferation of political party help? That should be the question. Why did it not help? Because people who were in opposition, who preached the multi-party democracy, could not hold to solidify and solving the problem of Liberia. So they became a failure. Though their quest for us to have a multi-party democracy was to allow Liberians to have a party of choice, which is individual right in terms of democracy. But did this solidify the democratic space of our country? Absolutely no. Because the proliferation of political parties today undermines the growth and stability of our country. Now we wanted multi-party.
How multi-party is undermining the growth and development of our country? How?
Good. The reason it has undermined our democracy is that we have a recycle of public bureaucrats who have corrupted the systems, comes back, use political party as a backup, and resurface into government, use government as a means of amalgamating wealth, comes back to the system. Now, because the proliferation of political parties are not put into an environment that we can vet them to know them, the same corrupt people who advocated for the system to be a multi-party system, the same people went to government, accumulated the wealth of government, came back outside, formed political party, used political party as a yardstick to defend their properties, their cronies, their friends, their colleagues, and family. For example, let's say, for example, you have an NPP. NPP. How the NPP can come about? Charles Taylor worked in government before for GSA. He came to America as a procurement person, went to jail, went back to Liberia, fought the war, formed an NPP as a political institution. Who is Charles Taylor? A former government servant. Formed the NPP. Used the NPP as a yardstick to enter government. Accumulated wealth. He accumulated the wealth, put the wealth back into NPP, Stewart Island, and the rest of the people. Today you have the ALP, All Liberian Party. An All Liberian Party is an offspring of NPP. So what happened to ALP? ALP now has become one of the major parties in Liberian body politics. Who is ALP? Benani Hure. Who is Hure? It's an offspring for NPP. What has been done? ALP now is protecting the wealth of the NPP.
So, Mr. Camarade, let me push you back on your point. Your point, are you trying to say to me and my audience that yes, the people advocated for multi-party democracy, but they did not really, bring up leaders who were able to succeed them and be able to carry on as it was being preached by them? Is that one of your points?
That is one of my points. They did not bring in, like my uncle said, bring in a new breed of generational leader.
Right.
They use the space to tap on the vulnerable populations. That they did not create a space of educating that population of the problem that they have identified, transforming that problem into a more pragmatic engagement. Well, Liberian, from Lofa County, Meriden, Bapudu, Grand Basso will feel the impact of the multi-party democracy. But other than that, they just use the system as like you have a parent company that's establishing a subsidiary to have a control of supply chain in terms of business entrepreneurship.
All right, let come back a little bit. History is sweet. I love history, and Mr. Cumming will have Mr. Cooney, sorry, will have an opportunity to comment on that piece of history a little bit. But looking at what we have, Mr. Cooney raised very good points. Accountability, he said he gave them A+, but one of the things he said that they should be doing is to develop clear alternatives because they constitute government in waiting. And he's saying they're not there. Do you agree with him or not?
No, this is I partially agree with him. But how can you tell Madam Salih to ensure that we have the TRC recommendation implemented when she is indicted in a TRC? How can you tell Benani Hure to transform a pragmatic platform to lift Liberia out of poverty when he was part of NPP who were buying SIM card $65 and buying scratch card $5, and the technological space of Liberia was some kind of way that exploited the masses, the downtraded masses. So do you expect the ALP to give you a platform to resuscitate our economy? Absolutely no, because they all contributed to the downfall of our country. Do you expect today, even the Union Party, who just came out of government less than 3 years, do you expect them to give you a different platform other than the platform they came with? corruption under my administration will be public enemy number one. When corruption became the best friend, when our fathers were told they would go to work, they would come back home alive. Some of them could not come back home living. When people said the justice system could be good, the justice system was a system compromised. Our tripartite system, the criminal system, the justice system, the corruption system, do you expect it? You don't expect anything of them because they just came from there.
All right.
So anything they're telling you right now will just be sugarcoating the system so
Sugarcoating.
that people will not see the light in the darkness.
All right.
So you don't expect it.
Let me,
I don't have Mr. Coney giving an A. I give them F because they identified the system before and they were in government for 12 years and they did not do it. Can they do it in another 6 years time? I'm saying absolutely no.
Thank you. And don't forget, Mr. Cooney only gave them A plus on one thing, criticism. In other words, holding the government feet to the fire. But he said the most essential things, developing clear alternatives, all right, and also providing alternatives as well as raising new breed of leaders. He said they fail only on accountability by holding the government feet to the fire. But let me come to you, Mr. Cooney. Mr. Kamara went a little bit into history, something you are very much familiar with, giving your own understanding of our history. The progressive, he said, these guys just made noise, and if I can paraphrase him, about multi-party democracy. They didn't put any framework into place so that people coming after them will be able to pass it on and on for us to experience democratic growth. So they left with us a fiasco multi-party democracy. I don't think you are happy with that. Oh, sorry, Mr. Cooney, you are on mute. Let me get you off mute. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
Mhm.
I appreciate the views shared by my younger brother.
Mhm.
When I was giving my assessment, first of all, the grading of the opposition, giving them an A plus, was actually meant to be a sarcasm, meaning that criticism is cheap. All they do is criticize, and the most crucial things, like I indicated, they fail on that. So the A is not that they're doing good at holding the government accountable. It was a sarcasm meant to say that the only thing that is easy to do, criticize, is what they do. Whether they even stand up to the scrutiny of their own criticism is another question. But I just want to, the historical piece my younger brother introduced. To be honest with you, Asani, I am so tired, very tired of seeing young Liberians continue to hold individuals responsible for what they did 40 years ago. 40 years ago. The question is, what have you been doing in that 40 years? What have you been doing in that 40 years? Why do you think that Tobana Tipote, Amos Sawyer, Burma Family, Bacchus Matthews should still be held responsible for the problems of today? Before those people reach our ages, they've already built national consensus on national issues. And by the way, I want to disagree with the brother. The advocacy of the progressive at that time, the issues that faced them at that time, they stood to that issue. They fought for multi-party democracy through hills and bullets, through military dictatorship, through authoritarian rule. They held fast. They held fast. They gave us that multi-party democracy. The fact that we are unable to manage it doesn't mean we should blame them. 40 years ago, the fact that we are unable to manage it, the fact that we continue to be driven by belly, the fact that we continue to be voting for rice, the fact that we continue to be voting for $5 that people gave us, you don't hold those people responsible. They met the challenge of their time. And I'm very much proud to have been part of that movement. The movement was for a cause, to bring multi-party democracy in Liberia. They've delivered that. Now, how this generation of Liberians live up to their multi-party democracy is their own challenge. And nobody should be held responsible other than themselves. Sometimes it takes me off in a way that individuals that are far educated, individuals that are far wealthier, than what the progressives of the 70s and the 80s were. They've not used their education to build any national consensus. They've not used their wealth to sacrifice for our people. And all they do is, Tipote is almost 80 years old. Any Liberian that continue to look over to Omen Tipote and other people to solve the problems of today, you've squandered your own opportunity. You've squandered your own opportunity. But the important point is they declare their advocacy, they met the challenges of the advocacy, and multi-party democracy is today delivered to Liberia. It is because of that advocacy that Eyeke Koluba can be representative. It's because of that advocacy that Mr. George Weah can be president. It's because of that advocacy that we are electing our leaders. Now, if we fail to do a good job to elect people that are supposed to lead our country, then you blame the people that led to the advocacy. It's like the South African blaming the ANC for fighting apartheid. Can you imagine that?
Thank you.
Can you imagine that? So I just wanted to make that clarification, and then let me back up to my point.
Okay.
Like I said, my grading of the opposition A+ in criticism. It's not even accountability, it's criticism, because there is a difference in holding somebody accountable and just meaninglessly criticizing. Like I said, some of the criticism, they can't stand the scrutiny of their criticism. For example, you accuse the president of dividing the country. You accuse the president of childish talk. But then a prominent member of the opposition say the president was not raised well. What's the distinction there? What's the distinction there? You accuse, I'm coming. You accuse the current government you accuse the current legislature that, they've corrupted the country, they're receiving all kinds of money, the salaries they receive is this and that. Then here you are, you participating in the division of slush funds. And the only defense you get is because it's in the budget. But the salary you campaign against was in the budget. The gasoline allowance was in the budget. Every other thing you campaign against was in the budget. But now you're saying you're taking the slush fund because the slush fund is in the budget. So this is the thing.
All right.
Before I land, the point is what I'm saying, because this opposition lack bold ideas, bold vision. Some of them I will go to, they latch onto everything that look like criticism of the current government. Can you imagine leading people in the opposition, they pray, like let the president get a coronavirus? Is that an opposition issue? Is that something that's supposed to come from even the layman in the opposition? You praying for somebody to get viral?
All right, Mr. Kone, I'll come back to you. I don't want you to one more dicky the conversation here. Your point is well made. We'll come back to you. Let me come back to Mr. Kamara. And gentlemen, let's do this. Let us not dwell on the progressive. Our topic here is to assess whether or not our current political figures or opposition are either liability or assets to our democracy, liability or asset to their own political institutions. That's what we're doing, and we can use so many yardsticks, to analyze it and come up with something that we all can learn from. So first, we talk about Mr. Alexander Cummings, whether or not he's asset or liability. According to my panelist here, Mr. Kamara, he said, well, he is an asset, on the basis that he has, corporate leadership credentials. He was successful in the corporate world, so he still have those credentials, and that can be used. But politically, he gave him a sophomore. He classified him as a sophomore, politically speaking, because he has not been able to bring together a huge number of people in the political process. So he thinks he's on the path, but for now, he doesn't think he is that kind of political asset that we need in the country to be able to make our democracy much stronger. And for Mr. Kone, he was looking at if at all these people are bringing a new breed of generational leaders. They are developing alternative, and they are holding the current government accountable on the issues and not just the man criticizing. He said when they are doing those things, then he will consider them as assets. But based on his assessment so far, they are not there yet. So that was when we were talking about Mr. Alexander Cummings. Let's come to Omen Boaka. Gentlemen, let me start with you again, Mr. Kamara. Mr. Boaka has been in government for over 40 years. He served as vice president for 12 solid years. He could not win the last election. He came second. He put a good number. Is he still an asset politically to our country and to his party?
Well, Mr. CA, if we want to discuss in depth
Mhm,
to educate our listeners
mhm,
and change the paradigm of our Liberian Valley politics, it's kind of difficult
mhm,
that we just sugarcoat, we just hide the truth and just jump to a personality and just discuss that personality. I agree with my uncle, and he's a mentor. He has so many knowledge when it comes to the movement of our Liberian Valley politics. I'm not discrediting the progressive. I'm saying that the advocacy could not be sustained to transform the life of our people. You understand? I'm not discrediting them. We agree our right. We have a right to choose between who is good or what is good for us. But in the form of public policy prescription that could change the sector to transform our independence, our economic independence, our social independence, not just our political independence. But I think that they dwell on the political independence, our right to exercise our political rights in terms of choosing what we want. But many of those who also advocated for this change were also part of the system of governance. So, what kind of system did they put in place to be able to transform the future of the generation that will bring in a new breed of people? Let's say, for example, I will come to Omen Boakai. Many people say we have good issues in America. Martin Luther King preached a good thing in terms of civil rights movement. But while Luther and the rest of the people were pushing civil rights movement, all advocates who were in government were making sure to reform the service. That is why in 1978 you had the Civil Service Reform Act. Why did they reform the civil service? Because they knew that the system had a spoil system where people could not have the opportunity even if they are qualified. So the system decided to be reformed in terms of reforming the civil service. When civil service reform, that's how you see the affirmative actions, the meritocracy act, the penitent act, allowing people of color, regardless of race, regardless of class, as long as you are qualified, you have the potential, you're capable to work. The Disability Act. So civil will become reformed. Public sector will be getting reformed. So people could find a way, a better way to be assaulted, regardless of the tribe, the political, alignment, the tribe and religion. And that is why we need to be preaching. Now, the political institution that we have today are institutions formed by these same people who exit government, comes back, become heads of this political party, and the same old platform of yesterday, accountability, transparency, equitable distribution, agriculture, that is the same platform they count that way. But the attribute, their ability to transform and see different things other than what has been practiced as a tradition has not been transformed. Then we come back to like Vice President Boakai. If I tell you that Vice President Boakai is not experienced in terms of public policy or government, he's experienced. He worked in government for over 40 years. I agree. He's a very humble person, a father, a man. When you sit with you, he will console you. But out of sudden, my uncle said, we regret by squandering the resources of Liberian. Can you imagine that too? That's my uncle. But out of sudden, he regret that over 12 years, the Liberian resources were squandered, leaving the people of Lofa County with no light, no good road, leaving the people of Grand Gita no good road. But equally so, he said he was parked. It was a car park. So for 12 good years, we were all parked in our villages and towns. We could not have the accessible the necessity that we require as a human, psychological needs. We couldn't afford it for 12 years. Today he's in opposition. We see him as an alternative to come and bring that change. Is a change a real change or is a fake change? I could say he mean good for our country. But I am not seeing political coexistence in opposition. There is no political coexistence. There is something common in opposition and common in government. What is common in opposition? Opposition are defending the same bad people as well as government is defending the same bad people. So they all become liability. The opposition is a perpetual liability. Opposition today, they want to see in a war economic crime code, but they are protecting Yaka Kolibat, who do not regret the atrocity committed against our country. The opposition want accountability today, but they are protecting people that have exploited our maritime fund.
Mr. Kamara, now that I'm coming to Yeke's defense, but Yeke has gone on record, international wire as well, VOA, that for him, he wants to see the establishment of the War and Economic Crime Court. But my question here is, looking at all that you know, is Bwaka an asset? Numerically, is he?
Like I said to you, when you look at the entire political landscape in opposition, he's the most experienced person in public policy, in public sector. He's worked there for over 40 years. And they call the issue that you say we are going international media space that you want war crime code. That's a mirage. A war crime code cannot come in a country without a consent of your national legislature. How can you have a judge who committed a crime in the community and you're calling the victims to come so that he can exercise that? No, the national legislature must come to a bipartisan consensus to ensure that the over 250,000 lives that we lost in our country, our resources that were economically sabotaged, we should come to a consensus establishing a program that people will not go in impunity.
Mr. Kamara, I want you to zero on Mr. What's his name? The former vice president of Bwaka. This man have had all this political resume, for many years, and he was in government for 12 years. Liberian people graded his government to have failed them. And so my question, I don't want you to dodge is Bwaka an asset politically? And you can separate it if you want. Maybe for numbers, yes, but when it comes to leadership, the ability to deliver, maybe no. Just give him something.
All right, let me come down. Let me leave the other side.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say. It's a yes or no question. And
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I don't really do a yes or no question.
And not necessarily. Go ahead.
So people can have the understanding of what we means to change the narrative of our political opposition. In terms of asset, Honorable Bwaka is an asset. Like I told you, he worked for government for 40 years. And out of that, there is no charges of corruption on him, even though he said it's squandered the resources. Now, is he an asset in the contemporary revolution that we want to see a pragmatic change in Liberia? I would say at this point in time, if there is no other person to substitute him, then he's an asset among the four political candidates. Because if you look at the ANC, you look at the ALP, you look at Liberty Party, may so rest in peace, Councillor Brunskin. If Councillor Brunskin was alive, Ambassador Bwaka would not be an alternative. But with the three political candidates right now, the ANC, the Liberty Party, the ALP, and Ambassador Bwaka, amongst them, he's an asset among them. But do we allow them resurface in government? That is where we need to caution the credential. After 40 years, what is the shift in Liberia in terms of infrastructure, in terms of road?
Thank you. Thank you. My question is beautifully answered. You put context around. Hey, let me come to you, Mr. Kunin, analyst here, focus on Liberia. Talking about Ambassador Joseph Yuma Bwaka, former vice president. And I want you to answer my question using any yardstick possible, or you can look at different components. Let's look at him being an asset in terms of the numbers. Is he an asset to the opposition in the next election? Let's look at his political credentials. Let's look at his political baggages, if you want. Is he also an asset or liability? Speak.
Okay, so let me put it this way again, Sonny.
Yeah.
Like I said, looking at the perspective that I'm using. It doesn't matter which of the opposition leaders you pick.
Mhm.
At this point in time, none of them come across as an asset to me, you know, because, like I said, the purpose of the opposition is to develop bold ideas that will create an alternative to the existing government, to develop new generation of leadership. And someone will have to convince me that these things are in place. Look, the problem in our country, I can discuss any individual, but the problem in our country, I think, is beyond individual. We need a transformation of that country that will set the country on a path towards economic development and growth. And there are certain things that are hindering that process. The opposition, in my opinion, are deliberately staying away from those issues because they just want to inherit the system as it is. For example, one of the major things we face in Liberia is the concentration of power in Monrovia, is the predatory nature of the government in Monrovia, the concentration of power in both the president and the legislature in Monrovia. The interior, the counties of Liberia are deprived of any development because the resources of the country is being collected in Monrovia and used in Monrovia. No member of the opposition is advocating an effective mechanism of decentralization of governance and authority in our country. No member of the opposition is advocating the equitable distribution of economic resources between Monrovia and the rest of the country. All they are interested in is inheriting that same predatory system to prey over our people. Look, they're not even bringing innovative ideas. My brother, why a small country like Liberia, 4.5 million people, what are we doing with a permanent legislature that suck up about 38 to 40 million dollars of the national budget? Why? Why? You have a state here in the United States that got far bigger budget than Liberia. They go on part-time legislature. They go on part-time legislature. The legislature sit quarterly. They do whatever we want, and we pay them. There are some legislature, Idaho, Wyoming. They pay their legislature on a per diem basis. The number of days they sit. These are the kind of bold ideas that will shock the system and change our country. It's not this every day remove Samuel Tue, remove Jefferson Koji. These things are petty. We're talking about bold ideas that the opposition will come forward with. We need to decentralize our country. We need to take power away from Monrovia and give powers to the counties. But we can't do that. We can't even talk about partial legislature if we don't even want to tamper with the power that exists. Can you imagine in our country, every representative, every senator live in Monrovia? Contrast that to what we have here. Representatives, they live in dorm rooms in Washington and return to their counties. This is the kind of new Liberia we should be talking about. These are the kind of advocacy issue we should be talking about. These are the kind of things that bring people together.
Mr.
It's
Kone,
not, yeah.
Mr.
So if
Kone,
you ask me,
mhm.
any of them you put in that category, be a Baka, be a Cummins, be a uh,
You're right.
Benina Ure, they've all failed. They've failed up to this point. They are not a political asset to me. They are not an opposition asset to me. I see all of them as people who are clamoring to just replace the system and take over the system as it is.
Mr. Kone, I like your ideas or your statement about bold ideas. Anybody will agree with you. That's why we need decentralizing our government so that our people lives can be impacted, especially in the country. Is the way to go. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But to say that if Samuel Twer is being accused of mismanaging funds is petty, that is not petty. We're talking about a $25 million, for example, that this young man cannot account for. Reports showing a huge discrepancy. We have to make noise about it because this is the very petty
Can I,
behavior. Let me
can I
learn.
come in?
Yeah, let me learn.
Mhm.
This is a very petty behavior that been repetitive over and over and over and undermine the entire accountability issues that you are talking about, that you want to
Okay,
see.
Okay, so let me disagree with you. Let me disagree with you. As long as you maintain that predatory system of governance in Liberia, you're going to have that issue on a repeated level. If you decentralize our government, where accountability is closer to the people, you stand a far good chance of eliminating that problem. If you call for the removal of Samuel Tuer, what you think going to happen? He's going to be replaced. The system is in place.
You set a deterrent. You set a deterrent.
But the system remains. I'm talking about bold actions that will change the system.
And the bold
We don't want
actions
to
you're
change.
talking about, Mr. Kuning, individuals
Yeah.
must be the one to take the bold action. So maybe Mr. Tuer does not have the balls enough to take up the bold or to make the bold decisions.
Well,
And
we're
so
not
maybe that's
discussing
why
Mr.
people are
Tuer
saying
here.
he needs to be removed.
But we're not discussing Mr. Tuer. We're talking about what the opposition should be doing. We're talking about what the opposition should be doing. The opposition do not have an interest in transforming our country.
All right.
The opposition want to affirm that Monrovia is Liberia.
Thank
If
you.
electricity is in Liberia, is in Monrovia, then it's in Liberia. If running water is in Monrovia, then it's in Liberia. I'm saying for our country to make progress, these are the bold ideas that bring all Liberians together, irrespective of where you are.
Thank you, Mr.
And the
Kuning.
opposition is failing in those instances. They're not developing new leaders. They're not bringing bold ideas. They all want to be elected as senators to go in the same Senate, continue with the same practices as you say now. I mean, how can the opposition complain when the very legislature they're talking about is dominated by them?
Fair
They say
point.
the president removed Kabina Jane, but it was the legislature that removed the man. They voted.
Yeah.
All the opposition people voted. So what I'm saying is, if you don't change that system, which I think should be the appropriate, and this is why I'm not excited about the opposition, because I'm not seeing anything new. I'm not hearing anything new.
Thank you.
The only thing I'm hearing is this system by your power there, so who can take over. That's all I'm hearing. That's not enough for me. And it shouldn't be enough for so many Liberians, especially the people that live in the regions, in the towns and villages of Liberia, to whom we permanently designated poverty status. They should never see light. They should never see running water. They should just be in their villages and towns.
Thank you,
They
Mr.
should
Kuning.
never accept that.
Thank you, Mr. Kuning. Folks, if you are watching Focus on Liberia, this is our program, The Hour of Politics, with me, Anthony CA. Mr. Wilman Kuning is an analyst here at Focus on Liberia. And we have Mr. Kamara here as a panelist. He is our guest on this show today, and we are discussing the opposition politician, assets or liability, and we are going into their political resume and also their political closet to find out whether or not they constitute assets to their very political parties and also whether or not they constitute asset or liability to our entire democratic process. All right, let me come to you, Mr. Kamara. Let's take a look at Uri. Let's also take a look at Mr. Henry Pedro Costa, a big political guy on the scene who is doing all the talking, yelling, making all the noise, if possible, insulting people as a way of winning the people's attention. He is a politician, by definition of what a politician does. In your opinion, you were talking about you want to see revolutionary change taking place. Is Costa one of those revolutionary leaders you're talking about? Does it mean he is an asset or is he a liability to the very opposition, least to talk about our country and his party?
Well, Mr. CA, I want to say this platform cannot discuss it all.
I know.
We will just give our opinion on issues and we leave the rest with the listener,
Yep.
Liberian people to decide the future of our country.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I don't really appear on many of the platforms, because we just believe in saying what fits up, that contemporary, and we just leave the rest with the people. The revolution we want in Liberia is not a radical revolution. It is not a revolution to stage 1,000 protests. It is not a revolution to denigrate our culture, our heritage, our society, our norms, our religion and creed. The revolution we want in Liberia is a pragmatic, progressive revolution. And that revolution begins with the media, including you, our legislature, our public bureaucrats, our executive, our judicial branch of government, our civil society, our media, the fourth estate. And that should happen when we see ourselves as a mirror of our democracy, not as a mirror to replace today or to replace the current people in government, but to educate and sensitize our people about civil liberties. What is their right? What should be their right? What is their entitlements? Now, when we educate them for a period of time, then change will come as a gradual process, not as an eventual gain. Now, let's say, for example, if you go to our Constitution, Article 8, Article 15, Article 18, the government shall ensure opportunity for health, for employment, empowerment for the people, regardless of what political party. Now, but what we observe in our current democracy is that when you are not part of the chain, you cannot succeed or benefit. If you are not part of a certain group, you cannot benefit. But the government should ensure for all. You see, so most of what we see today in advocacy, or those who are advocating, they are not advocating for the change that we want for the downtrodden masses. They are representing their stakeholders. They are representation of their stakeholders. Let's say, for example, if I'm a United Party and I'm here and I'm in America and I'm a United Partisan, I want President Honorable Baka to be president. Whatever negative things that Honorable Baka somebody talk, I don't care. All I want to see Ambassador Baka a president of Liberia. What public policy should be changed, I don't care. All I want to see United Party producing a next standard bearer. If I'm for ANC, I don't care. Whether Alexander Comey got the best policy, but I want to see Alexander Comey. So we are not concerned about this policy. We are not concerned about society. We are not concerned about how to change the cultural dynamics of our electorates, how to educate them, how to hold the legislature accountable. How to hold it accountable. We're not holding it accountable. So you see a division, a diverse advocate background. People from diverse advocate background, they're all concentrating on the executives. Everybody concentrates on the executive. The president is corrupt. The president with $18,000 shoe. The president riding a race cross today. How many persons concerned about those lawmakers who are taking home $15,000 to $20,000 who could not even visit their own counties in these epidemics? How many lawmakers have visited their counties in this period of time? You in America, since the thing took place, you see all of the governor, the mayor, the city council, they're all in their constituent working to ensure that the burden of the pandemic reduced on central government, while the legislature are working to put in stimulus package, and the president is ensuring to brief the country every day on a daily basis.
Our legislator, they did their part. They passed the SOE and they approved the stimulus package. What else you want them to do?
Let me come to that, Mr. C.
Okay.
Our legislature did not approve that. They did not even bring in our bill. It was the president who sent in our bill. It was the president who sent in our bill, and they had to concur, amend, and add to it.
I thought that's the legislative process. Either it originates from them or it originates from the presidency.
It doesn't have really need to come from the presidency.
I agree.
They need to be, that's what we call proper representation. Oversight responsibility. Proper representation, I mean the president got to send it to you. You already know the prevailing situation and what impact would that have on the global economy, on the national economy. You as a legislator must come in first to start the game. But they have to wait for the president to send it. In that process, they have to receive 6,500 for the people who they say they want to protect. At the end of the day, you saw that. So we as advocates, if we want to change the dynamics of Liberian body politics, we need to start educating our people how to clean the legislature. If we clean the legislature, we will clean the executive, we will clean the executive and the judiciary. But the legislature is one of the branches of government that has posed more economic burden of our country.
Thank you. Fair point, but I want you to conclude on this, and I don't want you to dodge it. Is Costa an asset to the opposition and our democratic process or not? And so is DeLon.
Well, you see the issues like Costa. I did not want to really start with naming people. Like my uncle read it there. Because naming people these days in Liberian Valley politics become so personal, you don't look at the reality. Now, like I told you, that our political opposition is not an opposition that I believe in.
Okay.
I don't believe in it. The reason I don't believe in it is that it is a simple who just exit that government, who we accuse of corruptions, who we accuse of taking Liberia debt back to 1 billion, who we just accuse of not implementing the TRC, who we accuse of not putting a good judicial reform process where people get fair trial at court, who we accuse of bad immigration practices in our country. Those are the same opposition that we call today opposition to replace the next government. I don't believe in them. So whoever that comes as an opposition candidate or advocate, you got to do something to convince me. You got to show me somebody who I can see myself in the 21st century, that if you put him there, he's innovative. He knows the problem. He understands the problem. He lives with the problem. He can change the problem.
Thank you.
My issue with Costa is that Costa is a very innovative person. He's a young man. He's inspiring. He got energy. But he doesn't know the value of the energy he has. Let's say, for example, when Barack Obama addressed the South African parliament, the South African people, he told them that the overutilizations of technology in a negative way will undermine democracy. Let us utilize technology in the 21st century to promote peace and stability and educate our people about their rights and their responsibility in terms of constitutional rights. It is not to sit on the social media. Like I'm on the social media right now, people are monitoring me. I should be able to sensitize people, to educate people, to create a platform where we can interact collectively, regardless of our political, religious disagreement. But what is the goal, the objective of us coming together is to see Liberia in the next future.
Fair
So
point.
we can advocate, we can hold government feet to the fire. But how do we do that? We got to do it in a more responsible way. Because it could harm us tomorrow. What we do today could harm us tomorrow. So I think Kosai has the ability, but he has to utilize it in a more progressive way, not only by supporting people who he accused yesterday of corruption, and today they are the light in the darkness for him. We see that as double dipping. We see that as compromising your intellectual strength to educate or emancipate the people. So I don't really.
Thank you. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony C. hosting. This is our program, The Hour of Politics in the House. My guest is Mr. Kamara, and Mr. Cooney is an analyst here at Focus on Liberia. And we are discussing the opposition political party, asset or liability. And that is our discussion. Folks in cyberspace who are watching us, our phone lines are completely open for you to place your call and participate. If you have a question for our guests or if you want to contribute to the conversation, you are more than welcome to do so. I am here to take that phone call from you so that you can be part of the conversation. Remember, we are discussing the opposition political parties, the opposition political politician, the opposition politicians, sorry. We are discussing them. We want to know whether or not they constitute asset or liability to our political process and to their very political parties that they represent. Let's come to you, Mr. Cooney. What I'm gathering from the both of you, you are more like no. The issue is not more so of the individuals. It's more so about the issues, the system. And yesterday we had a conversation, we had a show here, we talk about good governance. And what I learned from our research is that good governance has 8 characteristics that you can look at to assess how a nation is doing in terms of governance. We said to have good governance, it must be participatory, it must be consensus oriented, it must be accountable, it must be transparent, it must be effective, it must be efficient, it must also follow the rule of law. These are the components that many of the two of you have so much interest in, and that is why I'm bringing it up. The opposition political parties, somebody may argue that these are the things that they are saying. They want the government to be accountable to its people. When it say, oh, the 25 million is for this, it should be for that, and there should be record to show that the money was used for its internal purpose. As we see now, they think that even on the issue of people's rights have been abused, there's no press freedom. They are raising all of these issues, and that's why you want to talk about. And it is on that basis, you, Mr. Kuhn, saying, I don't think they constitute any asset to our democratic process because these are the core issues, and they're not talking about them. They only want to talk about how the president knows is big and all that. Your turn, Mr. Kuhn.
Exactly, and that's the point I'm making. Look, all of those things that you listed, my brother, those are all the attributes of the predatory state that we have in our country. So you see, those issues that you listed, those are issues that have occurred from time to time. No matter who is in leadership, you see those issues raising their head. You see, no matter who will make leader, those issues come about. And this is why I was thinking that at this point in time, I think people in the opposition to be taken seriously would be looking at real alternatives. But all of the advocacy that you talk about is all intended to just replace, not reform, not restructure. They just want to replace. They have no agenda to transform. You talk about participatory. Yeah, tell me, how the people in the village and our towns and in the boroughs and other, how are they participating in the democratic process? We go to them once during election time, once the people vote, we carry the power to Monrovia. They no longer part of the power. They're no longer part of the economy. So I'm saying we've tried this system of governance for 172 years of power based in Monrovia. It is about time for a new generation, for this generation to meet the challenges of dismantling that predatory power structure in Monrovia and returning power to our people. I would love for Mr. Costa to use his platform to advocate on this, not to give breaking news about who get coronavirus and who don't get coronavirus. That's not national advocacy. We got a legislature, permanent legislature. And I submit to you today, there are states in America with billions and billions of budget that are using part-time or hybrid legislature. People getting paid per dime. These are all ideas. My brother here talk about the proliferation of political parties. You want to tell me the legislature that is controlled by the opposition lawmakers cannot even look at the election laws of Liberia and make some amendment? I have proposed here that for a political party to present someone as a presidential candidate, at least that party must submit, in addition to the name of that person, 25% of registered voters from at least 7 counties. You know, not because the constitution says you can be president, so the 4 million people in Liberia must register to be candidates. It's not like that. If you want to be a representative, in addition to submitting your application for representative, let it come with 25% of registered voters in our district. If you do that, you will streamline the parties. But we've developed this free-for-all system that anybody can be on any ballot anytime. Election has become very expensive because of that. Everybody want to go to the World Cup, but FIFA got elimination series. You got to show some seriousness. And you have this situation where people wanting to be president, going to election and getting only 1%. But we have to pay for their ballot. They got to print the ballot. We got to put them on all of these election materials. These are the things I'm talking about. It's not these criticism, and criticism is easy, my brother. You can criticize me the way when you talk. Yeah, I like it. But then you got to matter how to talk.
Let me add this. Let me add this to the mix so that I can read some comments and maybe bring in my colors, folks. Please keep your calls coming. I will soon start taking them. Mr. Kone, I wanted to say that the opposition political parties, the CPP, just announced that they have completed their arrangement, and they have a deal, and what is left is for them to affix their signature to it. And I want you to comment on that. Don't you think that is an alternative to streamline the number of candidates in the coming election? And why are we not also looking at primaries? I like the point you raised that we have the laws makers have all the time on their hand to work, and they know that every election we have to print a ballot that will have sometimes 22 candidates. There's an easy way to reduce that. Write laws that will reduce all the parties to a primaries. All right, that at the end of the primary process, maybe we can have two-person to go into election. They're not doing that. So speak to that. Is that one of those things you looking at and you say these people don't represent any alternative least to talk about asset to our democratic process?
Well, I don't want to give much credence to whatever accord that the CCP want to sign.
Mhm,
I mean, if they sign it, if they uphold it, that's fine. But I mean, sometimes you got to look at people's action.
mhm,
You got to look at you got to look at people's history.
mhm,
Look what the CCP did in Grand Cape County. You see, and again, this is the point I was talking.
mhm.
You criticize the government for not unifying the people, but you can't even unify yourself. See how silly how the CCP lost the senatorial election in Bonka and Cape Mount County
Okay,
in a
McCann.
very silly way.
Right.
They can't even come together on that. So I don't have too much faith in that document. I know the sticker issue going to come during election time as to who will be the standard bearer. That way you will see the test of that agreement. You see, so and even with that, it still doesn't solve the plethora of parties and candidates and other things that we're talking about. And people need to look at these issues seriously. Even in the United States, you have to meet certain ballot initiative to get on certain ballot.
Right.
Not because you meet the age qualification. And our people, they're sitting down there. And this is why I'm saying the advocacy is just to inherit the status quo. And if it is to inherit the status quo, I got no interest in that kind of advocacy. It doesn't do any Liberian good, because guess what? They're gonna get there. These same issues you're talking about, like my brother said, the Unity Party was there. We're talking about these issues. The CDC is there. We're talking about these issues. They want to get there. We'll be talking about these issues. Guess what has remained constant? The system remained constant. So I'm looking forward to opposition political parties that will bring bold ideas that will change the system. We have to change that predatory system of governance in Liberia. We have to return power to the people. The people talking about human rights. They talk about human rights. Let's look at the issue of human rights. Do you know that one of the worst human rights violations in Liberia is the detention of Liberians for pre-trial reasons? But nobody, they don't talk, the opposition don't talk about those kind of Liberians because they're not prominent. They're not prominent Liberians. There are thousands of Liberians that are in various jails across the country, pre-trial detention. They have not gone to trial, police just arrest them, they're in jail. And it has been in Liberia from time to time. It's
And,
not just
but Mr. Cooney, you talking about there? I'm glad you raised it. You are sympathetic to this government, and it is the government you're talking about carrying on this behavior. And I have
but
not
we're not
seen you.
discussing
I have not heard you raising that ladder.
no, but we're not discussing government now. We're discussing opposition.
All right.
So wait, when you bring the government in, bring me in. But
Okay.
what I'm saying
Right.
is,
Right.
I mean, these issues. What I'm saying is, without changing the system,
Hmm.
this system, this spread, you can't get justice, you can't get participation, you can't get accountability because the system is highly centralized, and the power is in the hands of Maria politicians.
Moreover, politician got the key to the
They
ugly
got a
system,
key. They
and
got a
then
key. And
uh
my brother, look, let me tell I sometimes get passionate about this because you know what? I'm an interior boy.
mhm.
I went to Monrovia when I was 10 years old. I submit to you today, when I was leaving the interior, there were children, 6, 7 years old, maybe under 10, that were going naked in the interior of Liberia. I submit to you today, 2021, you go through the various towns and villages of Liberia, there are Liberian children that are still going naked. There are Liberian children that are still going naked.
That's
And
true.
whenever we talk about Liberia, we only focusing on Monrovia. Oh, no light in Liberia and no light in Monrovia, no water in Monrovia. But those people are not supposed to get light.
Thank you,
We've
Mr. Conan.
consigned them to their fate. We've consigned them to their fate. They're supposed to born, die without seeing light, without seeing drinking water, simply because we take all the power, we sit down on the power in Monrovia. The
Thank you.
legislature there is participating in the distribution of slush funds called operational funds. And now, even those who are supposed to be advocates, they say we shouldn't question them because they're in the budget. But hey, all the other things you question were in the budget. Remember that. The salaries, the allotment, everything was in the budget. So now you can't use budget as a defense. You cannot.
All right, maybe the $25 million was not in the budget. That's why they're raising that ball. Let's leave it right there. Let's leave it right there. Mr. Kamara, let me read a few comments from our caller and keep that thought. I see you want to come in. That is good. Let me read. Hamilton Tapper. That's it, Daddy. I don't know. I think he's talking about Mr. Cooney when he made that point earlier about the system. Ayuba Kamara, right? Uh, the old man talking about the system. Great point. He talking about the old man. Yeah, the man are old man, a young boy. Yo. Marie Padet, right? Are you going to go there and make the bold idea? All carrier church is a wonder why you stay here. I don't know what she's talking about there. Maybe Mr. Cooney knows what she's talking about. We are though, right? Granted, the legislature voted to remove the former justice. The president played a role in the removing process. Let's look at Nora Hooks, right? Educate the people if they are willing to learn. Maybe she's trying to make the point that the opposition politicians they are trying, but the people are not willing to learn. Maybe they are stuck somewhere. And then Steve Bullet, right? You are making some very good points, suggestions. I concur with your section. Maybe that was when one of you um, making that point there. So let's look at ability. For 12 years, the CDC was in opposition with no political blueprint. The CDC still operates the same budget Ellen left us. The only changes the CDC has made is to increase and reduce certain portion of the budget. Let me come to my guest here, Mr. Kamara. We are staying on whether or not the opposition constitute asset or liability to our democratic process, and whether or not they are any alternative whatsoever. And you guys are placing the emphasis on the system. And the thing is that people go and come, they inherit the system, they don't transform the system. Who can we hold responsible for the system we have today in terms of changing it? I think you will agree is the current government. And that is why the opposition, let's look at the role of the opposition. The opposition role is what? To raise the issue and highlight all the wrongs the government is doing. So I think they're doing their work. So all the thing you guys saying, oh, this is bold idea, they're not talking about it. They're not in charge. I don't care how they talk about it. There's no way they can implement it. Opposition political parties or politicians don't implement government policies and programs. The government in power does.
Azane, can I come in?
No, don't steal camera time. He been waiting. You will
Oh,
come in later.
oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, camera, Mr. Kamara, quickly.
Yeah. What's your question?
The question is, you guys are saying yes, these guys don't represent any alternative or more so, and they are like liability to the democratic process, but it's also about the system. And I'm saying to you, they are opposition. The best they can do is to criticize the issues that are going wrong as they see fit. They don't implement government policies and programs. So to say that they're not an alternative, they're not assets to the democratic process because they're not doing all of the above. I mean, it's not a fair criticism. I mean, of them. Their role is to just hold the government feet to the fire on the issues the government doing wrong.
Well, that's very simple. I think we've answered that over and over. It's just a
Okay.
matter that we need to make it more clear
hmm
so we understand. When you say opposition, it's not just the political party outside and the standard bearer on the political with the political party. When you say opposition, the government itself has an opposition working within the government.
Mhm.
The judiciary, you have people in the political party also in the judicial branch. The legislature that have 103 people, like Mr. Kony said. You have the Senate that constitute, I think, 80% of opposition. But what are they doing in terms of reform? Now, reform necessarily has to come from the executive. If today we have an unemployment rate at the high level, you understand? If you had an unemployment level rate as a high level, you have concessions, over 66 concessions or 66 concessions signed in that same legislature with 5 major concessionaires. You have Metastee, you have China Union, which I know probably gone down. You have how you call it, APN Terminal. You have Saint Darby. You got Golden Veronian. You have all these concessions. You have Firestone Rubber concessions. Now, how do we create employment? Employment has become necessary for the president office by appointing people in government. No, you create vast employment out of the circle of government by reviewing some of those concessions. It's not the president supposed to review it. You have legislature who in Article 34 give them the right to review concessions, to amend, to levy taxes, to act laws. That is part of their cardinal responsibility, legislating. So if we want to create a huge employment gap in our country, it is not about how many persons we take the central bank, agriculture ministry, comment ministry. Let's see whether we can amend some of these concession laws that will create social corporate responsibility, that will create some local content. Now, if you create those opportunities and incentives in the concession, it creates local content for the locals. Then the local people will be able to have jobs. There will be opportunity afforded them. There will be extra opportunity coming from the concessionaire to the environment. That creates jobs. So if the opposition said today that President, we have promised to make 1 million jobs available. Okay, but they too can make the job available. How can they make it available? They can create an opportunity. Let's see whether we can create an opportunity to expand the special economic zone. The special economic zone that came into being, I think, 1978, that special economic zone that's controlled the entire political economic landscape of our country. That special economic zone that control all of our concession areas, the port, Maryland, Sando, Maserado, the entire economic zone. How do we revamp that?
Mr. Camara, hold on. Your family having conversation in the back is interfering with the show. So please tell them to go a little further from you. We don't trying to stop them. You can continue, sir.
Yeah, so how do we revamp that? That also our legislature should be able to know, how do we invest in our economic zone? When you invest in an economic zone, you open job employment, you open opportunity, locals will get job. It is not only the president, opposition are also in the legislature. You understand?
Yeah.
So the issues about the opposition, we all can hold government feet to the fire. I agree. It's the same advocacy from one generation to another generation. Yesterday, we accused Charles Taylor. We accused Helen Johnson Sirleaf. We accused President George Weah. That's how we were accused, even if Mr. Cummings is there. There's the same form and practice we continue to exhibit. But how do we hold our people accountable that are the true representation of our constituency? Now, in the democracy, I always tell people, I say, you know what, you made a mistake. You focus on electing president, then you focus on electing legislators. How many times have you seen people or opposition taking a popular uprising to the Senate to say, you know what, their lawmaker is corrupt and there's a need our constitution impeaching the people? Article 1, power is inherent in the people. It's not only to move the president. Power is inherent in the people to even move their own legislator.
But the people must have the proof first. Do they have the proof?
Then you have the right. That's why the Constitution gave you the right. If your legislator go against the Constitution in terms of violation, what make you think the legislator move Cabinet Janet, even though it's still a debate? But the power is invested in them. And thus the power is invested in the people. If the legislator have the power to move the president, The people have the power to move the legislature through a petition from the constituent. That is a civil responsibility we need to practice. We don't handle being a political party. If we know very well that we're in District 10 and we know that Yaka Koluba is not doing anything good, just to be on social media every day while the people are suffering, we can impeach him. The people can solicit 10,000 signatures and facilitate that through the legislature. If we know very well that that is collecting money in the time of pandemic, it's not good, it's a violation, we can impeach him. If we know that Senator Cummings, we said, also doing the same thing, we can impeach him. That is how democracy works. In America, we call it we the people on the Second Amendment. So opposition is not just about putting numbers together to replace a seated government. Opposition must help in the process of reform.
Thank you.
Now, how do we do that too?
Okay.
Now, if you look at a political demographic today, let's take a statistic, and that's where the CPP is reaching to a collapse. And I pray that good people will see into it. If you look at the demographic right now, if you go to the election tomorrow, if you bring Alexander Cummings, President Weir is going to bring Alexander Cummings is just a second term of President Weir. I just tell him, thank you, we indulge you for the second term. Reason being that if you take a statistic back from the past election, Mr. Cummings couldn't get a Southeastern. Mr. Cummings couldn't get a Southeastern. Grand Crew, Maryland, Grand Judah,
Is that a guarantee that he's not going to get it?
And I'm telling you now. I'm telling you.
But we have contested before, and he didn't win 2 times, and then later on he won. So you can't use that as a yardstick. It doesn't work that way.
But you look, when you look at the rate, you look at the ratio of Weir and Mananseli, or Weir and Mananseli. But the going election was not Cummings and President Weir or Mananseli. It was Wakai and Weir. So Wakai becomes the next alternative if you look at the political mathematics. So even if to bring Mr. Cummings tomorrow, what is the major constituent? That's what Mr. Cummings was saying. What do you bring to the table as numerical strength? Let's look at Monserrato. Monserrato is a battle between CDC and the United Party.
Well, maybe the political variable will bring about a political tsunami in his favor.
Now, the reason why that will result to a political tsunami when the current establishment is repeating the same thing of the same past establishment. Let's say, for example, if the current establishment repeating what the United Party did, then it gave the people no alternative but to put the same old people back, garbage in, garbage out.
And that's what's happening.
The current establishment changed the variables into decentralization, like Mr. Cummings was saying, decentralization in terms of how many people are dislocated in Grand Crew, how many people dislocated in Lofa County, how many families in Grand Kema County do not have domestic homes. If the government look at decentralization policy, it means the certain population will be decentralized. People will go back in the rural area. If that happens, it means the people will start to feel the impact of the government.
All right.
If that does not happen, then it gives the people another alternative to bring the same old system back. So we're going to be recycling the same people, and we're going to have the less economic impact on our society.
All right.
Let's be the same way.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara, right there, concluding his point. Mr. Kone?
Yeah.
You had a point you wanted to make earlier. I think, again, you maintain your point that the opposition politicians don't represent the alternative that we need as a country, leads to talk about there being any asset politically speaking. So are you trying to say that the current administration is having an easy ride for another term? Is that what you're saying?
Well, like you said, this is politics, so no one can predict. We got about 4 years. 4 years is like a moon away, so you can't predict. But let me make this point clear. I subscribe to the idea of a political opposition. I think the political opposition can do good for a country. I think the political opposition is necessary for the democratic process. The only point I'm making is that, in my view, I don't think our political opposition has reached that level of playing its proper role within the body politics. You see, election is about choices. You have to give people a choice, and I don't know. Like I say, it's 4 years. They might do better. And maybe, I know they don't need my advice, but maybe somebody need to look at some of these issues we're talking about, because we've changed leadership in our country since 1847 in the same manner, and we keep getting the same result. We have to think outside the box, and this is where the opposition is failing. The opposition is failing. The current predatory system of Morea politicians cannot continue. It has not developed our country. It will not develop the country. And even if you go to the immediate governance issues of the day, for example, take education. I've yet to see the plan of the opposition, as it relates to education. What is the plan? What's the opposition saying about education?
No, Mr. Conan, stop that. You want
I'm
opposition
coming.
to be the one to determine
Listen,
the
Asane,
all right?
give me a chance.
Okay.
I'm not saying the opposition should provide education to Liberians. I'm saying develop your plan. You don't need a government to develop your plan.
Okay.
You tell the Liberian people, this is my plan. This is the current system you have. This is my plan. You don't need a government for that. You don't need to be in government for that, because these are the decisions that voters use. Oh, this is what I have.
And how will just a plan on a piece of paper guarantee anything tomorrow?
Well, if you say that, they're not credible, because what I'm saying, these things in a political process, you should be able to inspire people.
Okay.
You see, politics is about inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
When you put on paper, first you're supposed to believe in it. I'm not talking about con artists getting together to fool the Liberian people. If that's what you're talking about, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about serious Liberians that want to change the direction of the country, putting something that they believe in, that they will do if they get elected. That's what I'm talking about.
We saw that, Mr. Conan. Let me bring this in. The CDC had that, I think, what do you call it, 12 pillows, whatever amount of pillows they had, and they came to power. The people are crying. It's tough to get a cup of rice. So writing something on a piece of paper and beating your chest does not guarantee anything.
Listen. Look, Asane, you're not being fair to the discussion.
No, my job is to push you to get more juice out of you. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, but then you got to do it in a fair way. What I'm saying, we're comparing with we're discussing the role of the opposition in the current situation.
Mm-hmm.
The CDC as a government got their government philosophy. They got their government document. They got a proper document that is out there for debate. Is out there for analysis. I'm saying for the Liberian people to be able to make a sound political choice, the role of the opposition is contrasting that proper agenda to what they will do for the Liberian people. It's just not enough to criticize road construction. If you criticize road construction, where's your idea about roads? It's not just enough to criticize the construction of a new military hospital. What is your idea on health care in the country? These are the points I'm making. You don't need to be in government to do that. And if you put them on paper, it must be things that you believe in. And now, mind you, many in the opposition criticize the construction of the 14 military hospital. Now, on her side, see how that hospital has come in this pandemic. That hospital now has become a needed infrastructure, a very useful infrastructure in the fight against the pandemic.
Well, maybe because it's in Morovia.
Criticism is cheap. So you see, I've moved from the bold idea that I'm talking about. I'm talking about everyday government issue. What is the alternative that is opposition is telling the Liberian people instead of just criticizing? Criticizing is cheap.
All right.
That's the low-hanging fruit.
All right.
But what's your education policy? What's your health policy? What's your cultural policy? What's your interior? What are all these policies? And now when are you writing them down? Because the way we know that you're serious, these things will be in your advocacy, they will be in your education of the Liberian people from place to place, from village to village. So yes, I agree. I'm not just talking about somebody writing a thesis and putting it on their website. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about writing something and thinking and believing in it and educating the people on the basis of what you believe in, that will inspire them, that will motivate them for them to take the necessary action in their own interest.
Thank you. Thank you. Fair point, Dad. Gentlemen, we are coming to the close of this broadcast. Mr. Kamara has been our guest here at Focus on Liberia on the Hour of Politics, and we have been discussing the opposition politician, access or liability to our democracy. That's what we have been trying to assess. And both panelists here are saying, well, in terms of the issue, they're not. They may have their political resume, but in terms of access, They're not sure they're there yet. Mr. Kamaran, we are at the close of it. Your final thoughts on the topic?
Well, I want to say thank you for providing this platform for us.
Mhm.
I know we might not agree on everything,
Yep.
but what we all can agree on is we want to see Liberia in a very good hand, a very good space when it comes to good governance, transparency, accountability, good oppositions, a progressive opposition, not a radical one. And I also want to say that out of the candidate that you named today, they are asset in the various domain, they are asset in the various political institution for putting the perspective of Liberian problem into a kind of different new dynamics. It is what we still caution their integrity yet. I don't mean to denigrate anybody, whether Honorable Wakai, Honorable Ure, the ANC, they are all great Liberian. What we want to see in Liberia is the kind of change, the change we see in Sierra Leone that is changing, the change we see in Ghana and Nigeria and the rest of the country. We know it's difficult, but it takes a leader to be patriotic, nationalistic. It takes a leader to be fair, to give Liberian back the opportunity they need. It is not about opposition. Our problem is not opposition. Our problem is ourselves. It's not just opposition. Opposition is just an institution that want to hold government feet to the fire to come with the same thing. It's ourselves. Until we can change our minds and attitude towards government, Liberia is not going to change. Because I see many people also like they will be an advocate, uncompromised advocate, just to get some political recognition. Once they get it, that's it. I have seen so many times. I've seen so many people who told me that when they go at the legislature, they will make sure the salary will be reduced, their pay will come down, affordable care, health, education, roads, infrastructure, in terms of reforming educational system will be changed. Since they got there, that's it. That's it. The whole place quiet. We don't even know what's going to happen in the next time when the whole pandemic is over. Most of our school system will collapse because we don't have the kind of technological space our students will be learning, and that's it. So I'm saying it is not the opposition that has the problem. It is all of us. It is our problem that we need to wake up for a new way for change. If not, the executive cannot succeed without good-minded people in the two branches of government. The president can have all the agenda, roads, school, affordable care, good pay, infrastructure. When you don't have the good legislature to buttress the image and program and policy of the executive, that's a failed state. If you don't also have you can also have a good legislature. When the president is not doing well and you have a good legislature, they can ensure to restore public confidence in the people. The legislature can do it, even if the president is not good. You see, in America, we all in America, we see some of the policy problem with Donald Trump. But because you have bipartisan consensus in Congress, they can disagree, but they put the national interest at the level of bipartisanship. But not in our case. Our case, they don't even want to see one another. Our case, they don't even want to take the interest of the people. Our case is opposition, is us versus them. Us versus them. And that's how we've been moving from one generation to another generation. So the issue is not about the opposition, the issue is about us, all of us. Who join opposition must be able to impact the change our people need. Mr. Cummings is a very good person. He's gentle, he's humble. When you talk to him, he's clear. But it's like Mr. Cummings too he's being sandwiched by two. He's being sandwiched by two persons with black collar. You understand? Mr. Cummings is sandwiched by the same people he accused yesterday. So it's like I am saying, is it an alternative? He accused the people of corruption. He accused them for bad policy. He accused them for disenfranchising the people of those public opportunity. But now he's been sandwiched. He's part of CPP. How can Mr. Cummings survive in the midst of people he accused easily? Now they don't trust him. So probably they could sandwich him or put him out of the whole collaboration political party agenda. So I see the whole CPP, there will be a breakaway as we go along the line. The CPP There's no trust within the CPP. I see them breaking away the same way you see the COP breaking away. The CPP will break away. And if we are not careful, it's going to cause a serious collapse in our political system in Liberia, where people will decide their choice, not the political party will be deciding the choice of constituent. If
And
that
and and,
happens,
and Mr. Kamara, the picture you just painted is bleak. And what it suggests to me is that in the opposition, there's no hope. All these people trying to put together through what they call CPP arrangement, it's not going to work. So you more so saying that let us just, hold our breath and stay where we are for the next, 12 years. Is that what you say?
I'm not saying that if the government is not giving the people what they need, then we should also come, and the opposition is not giving what we need, then we say no. I'm saying we should take a different dynamic in terms of how we build institutions and how we drive our people to a political process. Now, if we invest in the CPP, assuming that we all are opposition, assuming me and my friend and my colleagues, even the host, we all trust the opposition. But the opposition is not an institution to rest your hope on or to invest your entire capital in. Tomorrow, what happens? The same opposition tomorrow breaks away, then we become the loser. I'm saying let us be able to educate our people outside of political party to tell them, wait, you know what? There's a need we go back to our constituent. Let us go back to our rural district. Let us educate our people about the political process. Let us invest in our people in terms of how do we do some initiatives in terms of nonprofit capital investments, in terms of investing in other resources to, to build their social and moral confidence for the democratic process, rather than putting them together every month, every week for protests at the executive branch and the judicial branch, taking them all over the place and indoctrinating them into a more radical perspective than a progressive perspective. That's what I mean. Now, with the government, if we continue to do these things, the people will see reason to put in good people in leadership rather than focusing on the government. If the government does well, like Mr. Collins said, right now you can cut the pay, you got 4 more years to go. If they change a gear, because government is changing gear, if they change a gear from 2 to 3 in a very robust public policy manner, the people will see reason to revert to standard codes to see that as an alternative. But if they remain in the gear that opposition continue to criticize and they can't reform the process, then it means that the bad ones will become the good one in the midst of the in the midst of the contemporary challenges. The people will still see them as an alternative. So we are at the forefront of indecisive decision making right now. Should I be the opposition? Should I join the government? Or should I remain on the fence? So there are more people on the fence than being in the government, neither the opposition.
I see that you are on the fence. Are you?
Well, I still spying here. I see that the opposition, they have numerical strength because the people are indoctrinated in different form. But
does that mean you are a political spy?
no, I'm not a spy. I'm an independent right now. I'm independent of my own.
All right.
I support the government in terms of some policy. The good one, I support them. Mr. Connie is a witness to it. I joined many times at the investment forum. And I took businesses to Liberia. I've sent a lot of people to Liberia, even though they are challenges they continue to face with doing business in Liberia. But that does not mean I should quit the atmosphere of entrepreneurship. That's why I've been for 15 years. So we identify the challenges. We found solutions to these challenges. Like me, I realized that APN terminal poses a serious burden on our economy. But somebody said, no, that George we are government. I said, no. APN terminal concession is 25 years. It came into being before President Weah. But what President Weah can do is to recall for a ratification in that concession to put in some package that will affect the entrepreneurship. Because when you look at the World Bank report, they say Liberia has what we call the import barrier to the economy. So it means our import barrier, our port of entry has an issue.
Thank
now
you.
We can do that. The president must collaborate with the legislature to ensure
that goes.
So myself too is working in that position to know that to ensure that these things are mitigated so that Liberian businesses can resurface and be doing things. Should I say that in the media and start criticizing government and say the port is bad, the country is dead? That is not a good advocacy. The
Thank you.
advocacy must be to put a solution on the table and that we can have a collaboration and coordination and cooperation so that our people will have a better future.
In closing, Mr. Conan, uh, now that the opposition don't represent any viable alternative, leads to talk about they being asset to our democratic process. Are we hopeless? What's the way out? Close.
No, certainly we're not. Certainly we're not. And like I said, 4 years is in politics is a lot of time. And I mean, let me compliment my younger brother. I mean, he's been very, very well outspoken on some of the issues. And what we're saying is that within 4 years, anybody can make a turnaround. Anybody, both the government on the issues, on the challenges they're facing, they can make a turnaround, and the opposition can also, make a turnaround. But for me, like I said, for me, I see the issues much more bigger. You see, the call from the opposition, what I hear mostly is change the government, change this person, change that person. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if they make it part of their advocacy. I'm simply saying that we've been calling for that kind of change for a very long time, and we are at the same place. So this is the time to actually open our minds up. Let's talk about the very nature of our governmental structure. The government is too strong in Monrovia. The powers are too heavy in Monrovia. They're not only concentrated in the presidency, it's concentrated in the legislature, it's concentrated in the judiciary. It is time to break up that power. Look, I'm looking forward to a day where when we finally sign the concession agreement for Wolofisi Mountain, it will be spelled out that 40% of that revenue will go to the people of Lofa because the mountain is theirs. I don't want all the money coming to Monrovia and then Monrovia deciding where to get Lofa with that stupid thing they call social development fund. That is not enough. That's not enough. So we are talking about a total revamping of the governance structure. And I'm thinking that these are some of the calls the opposition should be making. We're talking about electoral reform. The current system of political party proliferation and candidate proliferation in our country is not attainable. And the legislature can do something about it. Look, Asani, look, somebody is a candidate in the primary of a political party during the same electoral season. That person is defeated in our primary and immediately joined to the other party as a candidate. That is the kind of system we have. And so the opposition need to come up with bold ideas to address this issue in a way that it will not only educate our people, it will inspire our people, and I think it put them in a stronger position for the people to be able to make a choice because politics is about choice. I mean, if I'm presented with a situation, uh, whether to continue the support for the current government or to choose the opposition, and the only thing I'm hearing is just criticism is not enough. It's not enough for me. It's not enough for many Liberians because the stakes are too high. We've been developing Monrovia since 1847. It is time for us to drive an agenda that will lead to the development of the rest of the country. We want to see superintendents elected. We want to see county officials being held accountable at the county level. We want to see accountability at all levels of government. And then it will resolve some of these transparency issues. So again, I'm making my point. As of now, the opposition is, I don't see them as a political asset. I'm hoping that maybe it can change. We got 4 more years. But like my younger brother said, these issues are very important to all of us as Liberians. And it is important for us to educate. It's important for us to talk to one another, not talk against each other or talk by each other, but to continue the conversation. Because even what we're presenting may not be perfect to some other people, but at least these are ideas that we can work on. So again, I want to thank you for this platform. I want to say a special thank you for my younger brother. This is my first time seeing him. Like he said, we've been meeting at the investment forum, and he was great. He did a fantastic job, and even the follow up from that program, I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right. On that note, folks, in cyberspace, we will come to the end of our broadcast. We have been discussing the opposition politician, whether or not they are asset or liability to the political process in Liberia. My name is Anthony Sie, the host of the Hour of Politics, and we have been having two panelists, Mr. Wilman Kone, who is an analyst here focused on Liberia, and Mr. Bill Clinton Kamara, who has been our guest since we started our broadcast late this evening. Folks, we educate, we elevate, we promote all things Liberia. Here I focus on Liberia. That is what we do. Folks, that will be the end of our broadcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and also our Facebook so that you can be able to benefit from all of our programs. Coronavirus is still real. Dennis Jai asked me to remind you that you should respect and abide and obey all the protocols that the health officials are sharing with all of us for not only our own safety, but the safety of our loved ones and family and the entire planet because we need to be healthy to change this world. We are talking about Liberia. We want a glorious land of liberty that we all heard and read about and even recited. It can't happen if we are not healthy. And Mr. Kune asked me to remind you for somebody to say, oh, Mr. S got coronavirus is not breaking news. What will be breaking news will be bold ideas to change his village that he left when he saw young people being naked and even barefooted. He wants to see that change. That's the bold ideas he wants. Again, folks, thank you for watching. My name is Anthony Sie, and we will leave you with this song that says, we are all Liberians and we are all one. Bye-bye. Be safe.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. United we want. Liberia, oh. United we want. Liberia, Liberia.
DJ House of Pain. Yes, I like this one. Him alright is him